Hello everyone, this is Mini Joda here and welcome. I would like to bring something different to you today. My goal has always been to make my channel about what's fun to me and what I'm passionate about at a particular time. So I find myself that I really enjoyed a book called Divergent, and what prompted me to read this is as a result of watching the movie, which came out about a month ago or so. So I kind of wanted to talk about my thoughts on it and see how they compare with each other.
Divergents threaten the system. It won't be safe until they're removed.
We have to fight back.
Ready.
So what I really like about Divergent is that it has this underlying message of being brave and embracing your humanity, all aspects of being a person, not letting society decide who you have to be. And I feel like that's something that really needs to be said. So let me talk a little bit about my experience with Divergent. My family wanted to go watch it. My little sister was really interested in it because she loves the Hunger Games. So she asked me to go watch it with her, and we went to see it as a family. I didn't know what to expect. I did know that it had some pretty awful reviews out there. So I wasn't expecting the best movie, but I kind of went in there, with an open mind. So we went to watch it, and I left the movie a little bit puzzled because I thought that the movie didn't make much sense in terms of the events that occurred and also in terms of the message that it was trying to convey. So I was really confused and disappointed, and I thought to myself, there's no way, because here's the thing, I have never read the book before that point, yet I already knew the movie did no justice to it. I just could not believe that a book that is a bestseller with so many fans out there would turn into a movie like this. And I had to find out why, so I decided to go ahead and read the book, and that's what leads us to today. So today I will be bringing you an analysis on Divergent as a whole in terms of, comparing the book and the movie to understand where the director is coming from and how the book translated into the big screen. Fair warning, this video does contain spoilers, so I would suggest if you haven't watched the movie, well, don't. Do read the book though, the book is really good. But at least have watched the movie just so that you have a general understanding as to what we're going to be discussing in a little bit. So let's start with number 7. We have Tris versus Molly and the Tris versus Peter fights. So sometimes directors do have to change things, I do understand that. But however, they shouldn't be allowed to change and switch events out of order. And this is what happened here. Basically, what happens in the movie is that Tris has to go through initiation to become a Dauntless. And the first stage is physical, which requires her to fight her fellow initiates in order to get a higher rank. Whoever is at the lower end of the rankings will get eliminated and become factionless. So basically, all of the initiates are fighting to gain a spot as a Dauntless member. In the movie, she has to fight a big girl called Molly, who beats the ever-living crap out of her, and then she goes back and trains, and then she becomes stronger, she learns about her abilities, and then she has to fight another initiate called Peter, who's one of the higher-ranking initiates, and again, he beats the crap out of her. So she loses both times, so I feel like she didn't get anything out of it. However, in the book, this happens in the reverse order. So in the book, Tris fights Peter first, and she gets the crap beaten out of her, and then she trains with, trains her and teaches her about her agility, about, speed, about cunning and strategy. So she comes back later, she has to fight Molly, and this time she does beat Molly, so that allows her to kind of rank up enough to move to the next stage. So I feel that the movie didn't show any progression. Tris didn't take anything out of this. It was just 2 scenes to showcase her getting her ass kicked twice. When in reality it was meant to show her training, her progression, her determination to become a Dauntless. So now for number 6, we have the Omission of the Dauntless Initiate Leaderboard. In the books, which I understand are longer, and they have more content on them, so it's much more difficult to put all that information into a single movie that's 2 hours long, so the director of course is forced to remove certain events from the movie. However, in here they decided to remove not just scenes, but actual aspects of the movie that have some symbolism attached to them. And in this case, of course, I'm referring to the Dauntless leaderboard. The leaderboard stands there as symbolism to show progression, on Triss's training, on becoming stronger and better, to adapting to her new faction, and also the tension as to maybe the possibility of getting eliminated, as well as her fellow initiates who may also get eliminated. One of the aspects that the movie missed out completely is the fact that Triss ends up at the end of initiation being the #1 ranking in the leaderboard. Why not show this? I mean, this is such an important aspect of her character growth. I feel that maybe the director felt it was unnecessary to include it, but at the same time I feel that it's important, to convey the message of the movie, to show progression of Triss as a character overall. Then we have #5, which is the true meaning of the simulations. As a Dauntless, you have to go through initiation, as I mentioned. Once you complete your physical stage, you have to go through the second stage, which is the emotional. That requires the initiates to undergo a simulation, which forces them to confront their worst fears come to life. Now, as a Divergent, Triss is able to manipulate the simulation to finish faster than everybody else, which allows her to rank up higher and higher, but at the same time, it causes some jealousy and conflict between her fellow initiates because she becomes suddenly a threat. In the movie, the simulations act in a different way. Triss is supposed to pretend to act in a certain way as to not cause suspicion among the Dauntless leaders. She's supposed to find a Dauntless way. For example, if you're afraid of heights, you're supposed to use cunning and strategy to get out of the situation. So, for example, you walk in a different direction as opposed to jumping off and confronting your fear, which is a problem because that's not what the simulation is for. The whole idea of being a Dauntless is that they value courage above everything else, which means that the idea is that the simulation forces you to prove yourself as being brave by calming yourself down and confronting your fear head on. Which means that, in my opinion, the movie neglects the idea of the simulations and the underlying message that they have of being brave. So as for #4, we have the true reason behind the erudite and Dauntless alliance. I was personally very confused when I left the theater because they showcase this Dauntless and erudite alliance, but the movie doesn't explain it very well. So the idea is that erudite uses the simulation serum in order to control soldiers from Dauntless and take down Abnegation, which is the current leading faction. However, if there's an alliance, then the question would be, why even use the serum? If the Dauntless are already on your side, why control them? And at the same time, later on, they show you that some people are being injected with the serum, but others are not. So if they are using the serum, then why not use it on everybody? The book goes into this a little bit more in detail. What they tell you is that Erudite wants to be the leading faction. However, they do have all the resources to do it. They have the intelligence, they have the knowledge, they have the plan, they have the serum. What they don't have is the manpower, which is why they need to make an alliance with Dauntless, in exchange of providing them with a position of power when the time comes, when they overthrow Abnegation. This is what makes Divergent into a story of a civil war, a conflict between groups within the same society. And I feel like this is an important aspect of the books in general. And if the movie is going to adapt a book and is going to become a trilogy or a quadrilogy or whatever they're going to make out of it, the movie should be addressing these things, especially because it's going to be an important aspect of the movies to come. Then for #3, we have the relationship between Christina and Will and Christina and Triss. There's going to be, of course, a series of events happening in the following books, and it's hard to know how they're going to set together this series of events in the future without including certain important relationships in this first movie. In the book, it is hinted that Christina and Will, two of Triss's friends, they start kind of flirting with each other, and then they eventually become a couple. They start having a relationship. Eventually, Triss has to get into a situation in which he has to kill Will, and as you would imagine, that would cause a big conflict between her and Christina. What I imagine is that the next movie, Insurgent, is probably going to showcase Christina and show her as being angry at the whole situation, but without you having an understanding of as to what happened before and the relationship between them, you're going to be just, what's going on? This also touches on the important aspect of the relationship between Christina and Triss in the first book, which is that of not just friends, but also as rivals, because they, at the end of the day, they are competing to become top of the leaderboard in the Dauntless. They They are competing as initiates, as rivals, and one part that really showcases this is when they are in, the group is divided into two, and Christine and Tris are in the same group, and they have to go get a flag from the other team. And they're almost there, but they're arguing with each other because they're discussing who's going to get the flag first. And that, again, it does showcases the rivalry between them because they are competing after all. They both want to get ahead, they both want to get extra points for their respective scoreboards and achieve a higher position as a Dauntless. And the movie doesn't really touch on this, so I feel that they missed that opportunity to introduce relationships that are going to become so important in the future. Now for number 2, we have the symbolism between Tris's final fear as well as her final confrontation with 4 at the end of the movie. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I like most about the book is the fact that it has symbolism behind it. And the movie missed out on a lot of symbolism that is in the book. For example, in the final stage of initiation, after you complete your first 2, is the mental stage. And that requires you to go into something that they call a fear landscape. And you have to confront your fears one by one. In the case of Tris, when she undergoes her final test, she has to confront her 7 fears. Her worst fear being the fact that her family might die and she might be responsible for it. So the situation, the simulation presents her with her family in front of her. And she's presented with a gun. She has to choose to either kill them or kill herself. So the simulation person tells her, either you shoot them or you die. You have 10 seconds to do it. In the movie, because she is supposed to pretend to be Dauntless, she just shoots them because that's what a Dauntless would do, right? In the book, this is not what happens at all. In the book, she is unable to do that and she decides to be brave by shooting herself. There's a very interesting conversation in the book earlier with that Tris has with 4, in which 4 tells her that being selfless and being brave are not that different from each other, which means that in her final simulation she decides to be brave by committing the ultimate act of selflessness and killing herself. Now that comes to bite her in the ass later when she has to confront 4 at the end of the movie when he's being controlled by the simulation serum. Tris is presented with the same exact situation as her worst fear, which means she has to choose whether to kill 4 or to sacrifice herself. She makes the same decision and she decides to sacrifice herself and again commit the greatest act of bravery there is. So, because in the movie she decides to shoot her parents or her family and then she decides to sacrifice in the section with 4, then it makes the final decision less meaningful. In the book, it's so much more climactic, so much more important to the growth of Tris as a character because you know that she's grown from being, timid and shy as a negation, which is where she came from, to brave as a Dauntless. And then finally, my number 1 moment. Divergent is just like the Hunger Games, isn't it? Here's the thing. Every book, every piece of art that you see, including movies, or at least the good ones, every piece of art has an author who wants to relay a message to you, who wants to convey some sort of lesson, some sort of life story, something that they want you to take out of it. By watching the movie, you get this idea that the movie centers around this message of revolution, fighting the government, fighting for rights and for freedom and yada yada, which is fine. That's okay. It works. It's a good message. It's something that definitely needs to be said. And it worked great for movies like, for example, The Hunger Games, which addresses that very well. In my opinion, the worst of it all is that the movie tries so hard to be The Hunger Games. There's this whole build-up of, the Divergent is just like The Hunger Games, and Tris is like the new Katniss, and this is the next young adult trilogy, so you should watch it. Okay, here's the thing. You can't take the message of a book and twist it like that into a movie that you want it to be. If you want to make your own movie, that's fine, but that's not what the source material is trying to tell you. The Hunger Games is a movie that's about what I just said. It's about revolution, about banding together, facing the government, facing oppression, fighting for freedom. Divergent as a whole is nothing like this. Sure, they have some similarities. They have the same teenager female lead. They both take place in a dystopian society, but the overall message is not related to what The Hunger Games is trying to address. Divergent, this series, is not about society as a whole, it's about humanity. It's about your values, your fears, not categorizing yourself as just one thing, to embrace all aspects of you, all positive things about being a human being. 4 even has this conversation with Tris in both the movie and the book. He talks about how, when he's describing his tattoos in the back, because he has all 5 symbols of the factions tattooed on his back, and what he explains, what that's meant to symbolize, is that he wants to embrace everything that it means to be good. He doesn't want to be defined by just one characteristic, so he wants to be selfless and wise and honest and peaceful and, of course, brave. I feel that the director read the book and he didn't quite get the message. He maybe just thought, oh, this is just like the Hunger Games, so let's make it a movie just like the Hunger Games. And he changed things to make the message fit what he wanted to say. But because of that, the movie tries to give you a message, but is following the events of the book. So the message and the events that are taking place don't correlate with each other. So that's what happened to me. I left the movie feeling confused, because the movie's trying to tell me something, but the scenes, the series of events, tell me something else. And that was my analysis on Divergent as a movie adaptation and how it stacks up to what the book did. I feel that the movie fails as an adaptation because it just didn't capture the message that Veronica Roth wants you to take out of it. Veronica Roth is the author of Divergent. I feel that if the movie had stuck to the message of the book, it would have been a better adaptation. As it stands now, I guess it did accomplish its goal because it did make me invested on it. It did make me so that I would be willing to read the book. So in that way, I guess it was successful. But at the same time, I feel that the movie should have been self-sustaining, that it should have been something that I could watch and understand completely without having to rely on reading the books. I did finish reading the entire Divergent trilogy, which is why it took me so long to come up with this video, because I wanted to read the entire series and get a better understanding of the story as a whole. I will be posting in the future more of an analysis on the series as a whole, the books, I mean. I am really excited for the movies to come. I hope they can do the books justice. In my opinion, Insurgent is the best out of the 3. So I'm really excited about it. I hope they can improve on what they did. For now, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. Please leave me a comment if there's anything that I might have missed, something that you want me to know. And also please subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you for watching, and as always, enjoy.